All right, so we're wrapping up putting in the intake and everything. We got our carburetor back in. Well, first we got our intake manifold, then we got our carburetor, we got our air intake adapter, and then our air filter. So we're pretty much wrapped up in the engine bay for the time being. We do have to go back and tighten up all of our water lines for the water cooling and everything. So we'll be back in the side in a little bit. But the next step is we're going to take a look, and what we got to do is put on the exhaust port here. And one of the things I did in some previous videos is I did quite a few bore scopes, and that was to look and try and figure out where the metal went. If you looked at the piston, let's see if I have it here. If you look at our piston here, we're missing quite a bit of metal on it, and one of the concerns that I had was where did all that metal go? So I looked in the bottom of the engine, I couldn't find anything down there, so it looks like it all blew out the exhaust port, which is good. And looking in here, kind of hard to see, but there's actually a couple of chunks of piston here. So we're going to vacuum this out. I did put a bore scope in there to see if there's any more further in. There's not. Of course, it rises, so it'll be pretty hard for it. My suspicion is most of the metal blew out. It basically melted into kind of a liquid form, and it just blew out the exhaust from the pressure. Again, I didn't see any big chunks in the bottom or anything, so I think we're good there. So I'm going to just vacuum this out real quick, and then we're going to put the exhaust port back on, and then I think we're probably going to do a compression test, so we'll get after it. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to put on the exhaust flange, and Chris at CWA Racing, he did a nice job cleaning up the inside of this, and so we're going to go ahead and just get this ready to bolt up. Now I did look for torque specs in the manual, and ironically these don't have torque specs, but we're just going to use the same values as the intake side because they're about the same size screw and it's going to the same aluminum cylinder head, so I think that's a good rule of thumb to go. Now granted, I don't have a torque wrench that actually does 6 to 9 pounds of torque, which is what the intake screws say, so I'm just going to have to wing it. The important thing that you know is that you can't over tighten aluminum. It's going to cause you problems. So best thing to do is just hand tighten it in. Don't force it. If you're having some issues with it, take it out, clean up the threads, make sure you got the right size screw and everything in there. So we're going to go ahead and get all this stuff started to put in. Now one other thing too is when I took the engine out, I actually had the exhaust hooked up. And of course in this configuration, I'm actually going to have to do this all at once. Actually, it'll slide in there just nice. I think it'll be just fine. So I think this will work. So I'm going to get after it here. Alright, so I got the first screw in here. Just tighten this up again by hand. Never use an impact wrench or anything on this sort of stuff. Just go ahead and screw this one in. Here's the third one on this side. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and start tightening these up with my wrench. Just a nice turn. Not a lot of torque. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, so that tightens up our exhaust flange. Now the next thing I got to do is actually put on my exhaust pipe. So, not sure if you can see it in the camera here. I actually have an EGT gauge that I added to this pipe. If you don't have one, highly recommend it. This really just allows you to actually know what's going on with your engine. So we're going to slide that in there and slide that just like that. I think that should be good. And yeah, so that kind of wraps up what I'm going to do in this video clip here. The next few things are, let's see here, we're going to do a compression test. Make sure that we're getting some good compression out of this engine. I am not going to hook up the water cooling just yet, just because I'm probably going to change out this radiator bracket. We have a new design coming in. That's another story for another video. But we're going to do the compression test. I'll put the springs on the exhaust and everything. That's always kind of a, yeah, it's a fun, well, it's not fun at all. It's kind of a challenge. And I think I'm going to do a real short clip on checking the oil and the balancer side, because there is some discussion on how to do that. So I did ask Derek. He's the expert on this, and he gave me the tips. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in another short clip. So with that, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you guys in the next clip.